When I talk to people about everything that I do in my coaching business, so content generation, this channel here, I have a podcast, I have a newsletter, I send out emails every week, and many more things. I get always asked the question, like, how do you do it all? And I can talk about, and I have talked about, like, the systems that I have in place to make that possible. But another question I get asked is it worth it? And so I wanted to talk about that today in terms of doing all of these different things in an effort to grow my coaching business, what these things are, and whether I think it's worth it. But before I go there, I'm Michelle Sera. If you're new here, this is my channel, Coach Diaries, where I take you along with me on my journey to grow my coaching business and grow my email list by 4,000 subscribers this year, 2025, without any paid ads or complicated strategies. So you get to watch me fumble through this process, learn a ton, make a lot of mistakes, but also share with you what's working, how I did it, why, what were the results. All right. So I hope that you will follow along with me. And hey, by the way, if you want to put some extra effort and set a really big goal to grow your list too, there is a link below for a list growth planning calendar. This is the exact same one that I use every single day. So feel free to grab a copy for yourself and make it your own. So back to everything that I do. So, as you know, because we're here, I am actively growing my list, and you might even say aggressively growing my list, right? I'm working really hard to grow my list in a much bigger way this year without paid ads. I have this YouTube channel, of course, which is another channel of visibility, another piece of content for my business. So I'm growing my list. And so as I'm doing that, I am also emailing my list regularly. So that means, and frequently, that I am emailing anywhere from 3 to 5 times a week. However, the goal for me and the focus is always that I am providing value, that I am inspiring, I am educating, and I am promoting. So in addition to these emails every week, I am sending out a newsletter. It's called Find Coaching Clients, and I provide even more value inside this newsletter. I have a podcast, the Solo Coach Podcast, and of course, as I said, this channel here, Coach Diaries. So that is a lot to be creating every single week. However, as I've shared, I have systems in place to make that as easy as possible or as simple as possible, doable, right? And the reason, coming to this question of why, the reason I'm doing all of this is some of it I really, really want to do. I find it fun. It gives me another outlet to share the knowledge that I have, to share my past experiences and my expertise. Another reason is I'm testing. When you're growing a business of any kind, but especially a coaching business, get comfortable with experimenting and testing and trying out different things to find the parts and pieces that work really well for you. So, for example, at the end of this year, 2025, I will look back and probably even sooner, and I will look at all of these things that I added this year, all of the extra content, and ask myself the question, one, do I want to continue doing this? Am I enjoying it? I will look at the data to see what did I get from this? How did this help me grow my business? And then do I need to change anything? If I'm going to keep it, do I need to change anything? It will give me this year and this push to do all of these different channels of content will push me uh, to gather the data, right? Like it gives me so much insight into what is working for my business and what people actually want and need in regards to growing a coaching business. So it's incredibly valuable. It's, a growing experience for me personally. And I hope that you can find a place where you are open to trying many different things in your coaching business to find that mix that works really well for you. It can be done. And as I said, you can put systems in place to make it simpler. So, having said all of that, where am I with list growth? Because we're coming up on, there's just a few weeks left in the quarter, and I am at about 700. I think I looked 744 new leads, new subscribers to my list so far. And my goal for this first quarter is 1,000. Now, I'm currently in a list growth event right now, and I believe that this is the last one for the quarter. So I think it's unlikely that I'm going to get another, what is that? 250, 256 roughly. I don't know if my math is right, in the next few days, right? I think it's very unlikely that it'll do that. However, as I shared in the last video, I do have 2 list growth events the first week of April that are much bigger, and one of them I have participated in before, and it is really, really good. It's one of the ones that I've gotten the most results from. So I expect that that I will hit that goal of 1,000 within the first couple weeks of April for sure. And, that puts me on target for reaching my goal of 4,000. So, it's working. It's working really well. Is it a lot of work? Yes, it is, but it is totally worth it. That's the other question is it worth it? Yes. Growing my list through participating in these list growth events every single month, multiple times a month, and the work that goes into that is totally worth it. There's a lot of work that you have to do on the front end to be prepared and ready. But once you do that, then the rest of it is a little bit easier in that you don't have to prepare for each event like you did in the beginning. But there is the maintenance side of it, like keeping up with it all, keeping things straight, honoring your commitment that you made, like promoting it to your list or on social media channels in return. So just staying on top of it has its own amount of work, right? But again, I'm going to continue to do it because I know that at this point how well things have worked, that it is going to work and I will reach my goal by the end of the year of growing my list by 4,000 subscribers, which is pretty huge, right? Without paid ads. You could do that with paid ads in a day easily, but we're not doing paid ads. So I will reach my goal, and that to me means that it is totally worth it. Looking at the other things that I'm doing in my business. So the email marketing, 100%, 200% worth it. I am a firm believer that in growing your own list and then communicating to your community on a regular basis, providing value is so very fulfilling, but also just a crucial part of your business is to have that list. So putting effort into growing that list first and then taking care of that list, like providing value, communicating with them often, inspiring them, educating and promoting solutions to them is key. Matter of fact, list growth and email marketing are my top 2 priorities. In addition to that is visibility. And this, of course, is this channel here. It plays into visibility big time. And so does email marketing. So does list growth events, but things like podcast interviews and summits and newsletters, things of that nature can also increase visibility as well. So that's an ongoing effort. And my newsletter is new from the beginning of this year. And I am in the process of optimizing it. So I have talked about before, like consistency, frequency optimize or consistent, frequent optimize. So I focused on just being consistent first, then increasing frequency to where I could maintain consistency, like not going beyond the point of being able to maintain consistency. And now I am optimizing. So I am in the process of fine-tuning things within my newsletter to get the results I want from it. So the same thing goes for email marketing. I am at the point of I have maintained consistency. I have increased frequency to the point that I can maintain consistency. So I am beginning to optimize, looking at the numbers more closely, looking at what has worked really well, what has not, and making changes accordingly. So, podcast is probably the last thing on my list. Like I have certainly hit consistency on it. I have been very consistent. I'm not at this point in time going to increase frequency other than I have added it to YouTube. So, but I think I'm not going to increase frequency on it any further. So at some point I will turn my attention to optimizing that as well. I do write an article every week. And again, there's a ton of optimization to be done there. I have been very consistent. I have not increased frequency, and I don't think that I will. However, I haven't gotten to the point of optimizing it yet until I'll focus on optimizing one thing at a time. But it's important to still go through the motions and stay consistent and keep going through the motions of adding these different channels of content and value and visibility and ways that people can experience my work so that I can gather all the data and at some point decide what I'm going to keep and is it worth it, right? For some of us who are super, super creative and have ideas all the time, having all these different channels it gives you the outlet for all of those ideas, right? So we can look at that as all of these different channels, all of these different things that I'm doing in my business are creative outlets. They absolutely are. And that alone makes it worth it. So to answer that question fully, is it worth it? The one thing that I can say from a data perspective, like putting all of this effort and attention into list growth is worth it. I see the numbers. I am on track to reach my goal, so that is totally worth it. The others, I don't have all the numbers yet, but I am watching them. And by the end of this year, if not sooner, I will have a ton of data on that, and I'll be sure to share it with you and let you know how it's been going, how it has worked or not worked, and what I'm keeping and what I'll be letting go. So again, I am at 744 new subscribers to my list. I have another couple. I'm in a list growth event right now. I have another couple in the next, in about another, 2 weeks maybe. And I have a couple right off the bat at the beginning of April. I will be looking to add in some summits and some speaking events, as well as newsletter collaborations and possibly podcast interviews. Also just trying to balance in, how much more I want to add into my days. But I'll keep you posted and I'll keep you informed as to what's going really well. And of course, you get to hear about all the mistakes I make. And because I hope in that sense you get to avoid them, or at least most of them, if you get to see me mess up, right? Okay. So I think that's a good enough update for you. Thank you so much for being here. It just means so much to me to know that somebody out there is watching and learning and listening, or at least appreciating my transparency. And I hope that you have a beautiful week. Don't forget to grab a copy of that list growth planning calendar, and I will see you next time.